Hey guys, welcome back to another Clash Royale video, and today we finally had the news on the next round of balance changes in Clash Royale, which by the way are coming out on Monday, March the 4th. Now, what I want to do here is I want to quickly share with you guys all of the balance changes first, and then afterwards I'll share with you my thoughts and my opinions on the balances overall. So we have 5 changes in total this balance update. However, the number of cards in total being impacted is way more than 5. The first change in this balance update, guys, is a pretty massive one. It is a change to the Barbarians. The Barbarian card at 5 Elixir will now spawn 5 Barbarians in total from 4. So you get 25% more damage output from the Barbarians in theory, with the extra Barbarian being in there. However, each Barbarian will now have 13% less health, which means that Barbarians will now die to a fireball in one shot. Now, keep in mind, this will also affect stuff like Battle Ram, Barbarian Barrel, and the Barbarian Hut. All 3 of those cards will also have 13% less health on their Barbarians as well. So this is a really cool idea as a way to nerf all 3 of those problem cards, the Battle Ram, the Barb Hut, and the Barb Barrel, while also, in theory, buffing the Barbarian card as well. Now, the next card on our balance update, guys, card number 2, is the Wall Breakers getting a buff. It's no secret that the Wall Breakers kind of fell a bit flat when they came out in February, but they are getting a faster hit speed from 1.5 seconds to 1.2. What this means is they will now explode a lot faster when getting to a tower or to a building. After the change, guys, after the buff, if you use Barbarians at the bridge and the opponent does not answer it at all, they will both explode on the tower and they will deal similar damage to a Goblin Barrel if left ignored for a similar 3 Elixir cost. So pretty interesting change. But that is all of the buff for the Wall Breakers. No health increase, no death bomb, no whatever, just a faster attack speed. The third card here on our balance list, guys, is the Bomb Tower. This is a pretty cool change. The Bomb Tower is now finally getting that death bomb added, similar to the way it works in Clash of Clans. Once the bomb tower dies, it will drop a death bomb that deals ×2 area damage. It'll be a similar bomb to the balloon with a 3-second timer before the bomb explodes, but pretty interesting change because for the longest time now, the bomb tower has been a very, very weak and underused card. So hopefully this will kind of bring it back into the meta. The next card, guys, this one hurts me dearly. The next card on our balance list is the Xbow getting a buff. Increased health by 4%. So, new Siege meta incoming in March. Do you guys think Xbow will be dominant? 2.9 Xbow cycle is already a pretty popular deck. I don't know. 4% health buff is pretty interesting. I'll share my opinion, guys, at the end of these balance changes. But the 5th and final change, guys, only 5 changes in this list, but technically you have a lot more cards being affected. The 5th change here, guys, is a change to 4 Swarm cards in total. The Goblin Gang, the Rascals, the Bats, and the Barbarians will now all have a staggered deploy timer, similar to the way the Minion Horde works as well. So with that Minion Horde, guys, when you use a Minion Horde, each individual minion has 0.15 second spawn between them. The Goblin Gang, the Rascals, the Bats, and the Barbarians will all now have a similar deploy timer. So if you use those Bats, they don't all spawn instantly, which in theory will give the, whoever more time to respond to them. Like if you have your Zaspel and they use Bats, it gives you like a bit more time to use that Zaspel before your tank takes too much damage. So that is the 5th and final change, guys. 4 Swarm cards in total, getting that deploy timer mechanic as well. So that is the end of the balance update, guys. It's a pretty short one here in March. Even though it's only 5 changes, technically a lot more cards are being impacted. Like you have the Barbarian change, which also affects the Battle Ram, the Barb Hut, and the Barb Barrel. Then you have the Swarm change, which affects 4 cards in total. So that right there is 8 cards, I think. And then you add in the Wall Breaker, Bomb Tower, and Xbow. That's like 11 altogether. All right, so those are the 5 balance changes, guys, in this balance update. Now, what I want to do here is I want to quickly share with you guys my thoughts on all 5 of these changes, then my thoughts on the balances overall. So with the Barbarian change, obviously, by going from 4 Barbarians to 5 Barbarians, you're getting technically 25% more damage output, which is insane, right? That's a huge buff. But I'm definitely happy to see the Battle Ram, the Barb Barrel, and the Barb Hut, all 3 of those cards getting nerfed as well, because all 3 of those were problem cards, I think, in the meta. The Wall Breakers change, I don't know, man. I don't think the Wall Breakers are an overly interesting card, like, overall. Just because, like, we already have Bridge Spam. You know, they don't really do anything new. They don't really add any unique elements to the game, but hopefully this change is enough to make them viable in some decks. Personally, I would prefer to see a bit more health as well, but you know what? It's better that they take steps like this versus making the card like overpowered. The Bomb Tower change is a really cool one as well. I'm really happy to see the Bomb Tower get some love. My concern with the Bomb Tower change is it might be overly defensive. Like, if you could imagine if the Giant Skeleton was in the meta, like how slow and defensive games would be, because it just shuts down every push you set up. But I am definitely happy to see the Bomb Tower on this list. The Xbow change, it hurts, guys. I'm sorry. I apologize. If you guys are an Xbow user, I still love you. I got no hard feelings at all. I personally just do not enjoy at all facing off against Xbow decks. I don't even mind using the card. Like, I'll use Xbow every so often. It's more so the defensive gameplay. You know, with 2.9 Xbow cycle, all they do is defend, and you know, wait for an opening, wait for a mistake, and then go Xbow. And I understand that that's how the deck is supposed to be played. Defend, you know, get an extra advantage, and then go on offense with the Xbow. I get that. I just don't think a strategy that promotes 7 minutes long defensive gameplay is good overall for the game. You know, I mean, people complain about Mortar all the time. Mortar is also a siege card. I don't really mind Mortar that much anymore. The thing with Mortar, and I've said this before, is that at least with Mortar bait decks, you have that back and forth gameplay where, you know, they're going Miner to your tower, they're going Hog Rider to your tower, they're going Bats, Goblins, Minions, whatever. You know, there's a bit more of the back and forth gameplay with those Mortar bait decks. So I don't really mind Siege at all. It's just more so with Xbow, like all it is kind of just pure defense, which that kind of gameplay I don't know, I don't really enjoy. So hopefully the 4% health buff doesn't make Xbow meta, because I'll be a very sad man. But I do know that the Xbow users will be pretty happy to see it, because honestly, the win rates of the Xbow aren't too high, so it probably could use a buff. Just personally, not my cup of tea. And I think the change for the Swarm cards, the Goblin Gang, the Rascals, the Bats, the Barbarians, that timer change, I think overall is really, really good. Because Swarm bait, I've been saying for a while, has been too strong. You know, I've suggested nerfing the Goblin Gang, make it have 2 Stab Goblins, 3 Spear Goblins. I've suggested nerfing the Rascals. I still think the Rascal Boy could use a small health decrease. And I've suggested nerfing the Bats. But the thing is, like, how do you nerf the Bats without affecting the Night Witch, right? The Night Witch isn't crazy strong. She's only really used in Golem decks. So how do you nerf Bats without changing the Night Witch? So I think this change overall is really, really good. Now, the only downside to that is when you make a predictive spell, right? Like if you're using a Hog deck, you know, one thing I used to always do is if you know they have Barbarians, you go Hog Rider at the bridge and then immediately Fireball where you think they'll use Barbs, and boom, you hit them all. Now, if you do that, you might hit the first 2 Barbarians, but the final 3 won't spawn yet, right? So it'll be an interesting change. I don't think that the predictive element is too important, because realistically, you probably shouldn't be, you know, pre-fireballing Barbarians, because most good players will mix the locations up. So I don't think that'll be a huge impact, but I do think the Swarm change overall is definitely a nice touch to help tone down the Swarm meta. So Those are my thoughts overall on the cards that were included in the balance update. Now, let's go ahead here, guys, and talk about cards that were not included. You know, what did they miss? Because I definitely feel like they missed a couple of cards. So I have this website here, guys, pulled up. It's called Royale API. I will leave a link down below in the description. It is a fantastic site for finding the stats of all the cards in the game. Although, do keep in mind, guys, these stats aren't 100% reliable. Now, number one card that I feel they missed is the Bandit. I really think the Bandit is a bit too strong. And by a bit, I mean a lot too strong. So I would have really loved to see a small nerf to the Bandit in this update, because I just feel like for 3 elixir, she's way too much value. Hopefully the nerf to the Battle Ram with the Barbarian health makes Bridge Bam a bit less OP. But I just definitely feel like the Bandit was could have been included in this list. It was one of the ones that I was really hoping would be, but it wasn't. And then overall, I don't think there's too many cards that are like brokenly overpowered that needed a nerf. I know people say Baby Dragon needs a nerf. I personally feel like it's only popular because it's the only good splash damage card. Like when you look at this top list right here, these top like 20 cards or whatever, there's the Baby Dragon is the only splash damage card, right? So yeah, but let's just move down here, guys. What cards did they miss as well? I think there is a ton of cards down here that could use buffs. That I'm surprised some of them weren't included. I feel like there's definitely room to have like 1 or 2 more cards in there being buffed. You know, same thing with the last balance update. We only had 7 cards being changed. You know, why not throw 1 more in there and, you know, buff the Bomber, for example. The Bomber needs some love. I would definitely love to see a buff for the Bomber. The Wall Breakers should have been buffed twice. No, I'm just kidding. But, you know, they did a pretty good job. They buffed the Bomb Tower. They buffed the Wall Breakers. They buffed the Barbarians. They got a couple of the cards down here on this list, but I don't know, man, like the Zappies, you know, the Zappies could use some love. I keep saying it over and over, guys. The Zappies were nerfed in September of last year, I think. And every other time they over nerfed a card, whether it was the Magic Archer or the Cannon card or whatever, they've always kind of like came back and rebuffed it later on. But the Zappy buff is just kind of like nowhere to be found. Overall, I feel like the Zappies are just a really clunky card to use with their slow initial attack speed, just because like if you use Zappies on defense and they have a Prince, for example, the Prince literally just charges into the Zappy and destroys it. Like it just sits there and does nothing. And I think it's kind of just a weird design overall. Like I'd rather them buff the first attack speed but then change the overall attack speed to be a bit slower. I feel like when a card has a much slower initial attack speed versus their regular attack speed, it makes for a clunky and weird user experience. So that's the main card on my buff list that I'm surprised wasn't on there. I just think overall there's more cards in there that could use buffs. You know, the recruits have kind of fallen down to the bottom again. Why not throw a small recruit buff in there or a Dark Prince buff? So you know, just Zappies. The main ones for me right now are I'm surprised there's no Bandit nerf, and I'm surprised there's no Zappies buff. Those are the main 2 that I'm surprised aren't on the list. But overall, I think the balance update is pretty solid. It affects a lot of the problem cards right now. Battle Ram being nerfed, Bar Barrel being nerfed, Barb Hutch is kind of nasty overall being nerfed. So those 3 problem cards being nerfed. Meanwhile, 1 card being buffed as well with the extra Barbarian spawning. So that's a pretty big change. Yeah, I don't know, guys. Let me know what you think overall of these balance changes down below. Once again, Barb change, Wall Breaker change, Bomb Tower buff, Xbow buff, and the Swarm nerf. You know, what do you think of it? Were you hoping for more? Are you happy with this balance update? What cards weren't included that you were hoping to see changed? And what cards were included that you're happy with or unhappy with, guys? Let me know overall what you would rate this balance update out of 10. And once again, guys, the balance update does land on Monday, March the 4th. Anyways, that is the end of the video. Really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe for more Clash Royale content. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.